You know, it's the one thing on Earth we absolutely cannot live without, the very stuff of life itself. And yet, we almost never think about it. We just turn on a tap and poof, there it is. But what if I told you that simple little action is actually the final step in a truly epic journey? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and show you the hidden story of your water, a wild adventure of nature and engineering that starts miles and miles away and ends right there in your glass.
Seriously, have you ever really stopped to think about it? Because the answer is so much more than just pipes and pumps. It's a story that involves geology, biology, and chemistry. It's a story that connects every single one of us to the natural world and to each other. So let's do it. Let's start right where the water does, at the very beginning.
Okay, so before it ever gets to our cities, our towns, our homes, water has a whole other life. It belongs to the planet. Its journey kicks off out in the wild, in places run by sunlight and rain, where the great water cycle is just constantly turning.
I want you to just picture a single raindrop for a second. It could fall on some faraway mountain, right? Then it trickles into a tiny stream, which joins up with other streams, and eventually they all form a big, powerful river. Or maybe that raindrop soaks deep down into the earth, joining these huge invisible oceans of groundwater, hiding right under our feet, stored in layers of rock and sand. It's like a giant planetary sponge, and these are the natural sources that quench our entire world's thirst.
So how do we get to that water underground? Well, for ages, we've dug wells. These are, fairly shallow holes that get to the water just below the surface. You can often just draw it up with a bucket. But to get to the really deep, good stuff, the much bigger reserves, we have to drill boreholes. Now, these things can go down hundreds of feet, and you need some serious pumps to bring that pure, ancient water all the way back up to the surface.
All right, so getting water for one family from a well is one thing, but what about supplying millions of people in a huge, bustling city? Yeah, that's a whole different ballgame. That takes engineering on a truly colossal scale. This is where we humans step in to kind of manage and redirect nature's incredible flow.
To make sure we have water all year round, we build these absolutely massive structures called dams. Think of something like the Garip Dam. These things can hold back trillions of liters of water, creating these enormous artificial lakes. From there, powerful pumping stations start the huge job of moving all that water towards our communities. But, and this is a big but, not everyone is hooked up to this giant network.
And this is such a crucial point. For so many communities out there, the idea of a pipe running straight to their house is just a dream. In these places, water lorries or water trucks are a literal lifeline. These trucks drive over really tough terrain just to deliver this incredibly precious cargo to people who absolutely depend on it to survive. It's a pretty stark reminder that easy access to water is still a huge global challenge.
Okay, so we've collected all this water, but let's be real, it is nowhere near ready to drink. River water is basically a living soup of dirt, bacteria, and all sorts of other gunk. So now we get to the next critical stage, a truly amazing process that turns that raw, murky water into the safe, clean water we can drink. Now this is where some serious science and engineering magic happens. You can think of a treatment plant as a giant, multi-step cleaning machine. First, the water sits in these huge settling tanks, where good old gravity pulls all the heavy stuff, the mud and the grit, down to the bottom. Then, that clearer water gets pushed through layers of sand and charcoal filters, each one finer than the last, catching all the tiny invisible stuff. But here's the absolute game changer. The step that literally changed human history: disinfection. A very small, carefully measured amount of chlorine is added. This one simple step is one of the greatest public health breakthroughs of all time. It basically wiped out killer diseases like cholera and typhoid that used to tear through cities. Finally, after all that, the clean, purified water is stored, all ready to be pumped on the very last leg of its journey. To you.
But wait, the story is not over. The second that water swirls down your drain, a whole new journey begins. This is the story of wastewater, and trust me, what we do with it is absolutely critical for the health of our entire planet.
I mean, think about it. As we use water, we load it up with, well, everything. There's soap and shampoo from our showers, nasty chemicals from factories, fertilizers from farms. You add in the sewage from our toilets, and even litter and oil that washes off the streets, and you've got a seriously hazardous mix that would completely destroy our rivers and oceans if we just let it run free.
So all this used water gets sent through a completely different set of pipes to a wastewater treatment plant. You can kind of think of it as the city's digestive system.
The process is actually a lot like water purification, but sort of in reverse. First, primary treatment screens out all the big, solid stuff. Then, and this is my favorite part, in secondary treatment, they actually use good bacteria to eat up all the organic waste. How cool is that? After even more filtering, a final dose of disinfectant zaps any nasty microbes left over. Only then, once it's clean and safe again, is that water released back into the environment, ready to start the whole cycle all over again.
You know, when you stop and think about it, this huge circular journey from the river to your tap, down the drain, through treatment, and back to the river again, it's a modern marvel. It's incredible. But it's a system that completely depends on us. Understanding this whole journey is really the first step to becoming better guardians of this precious and very finite resource.
It is so easy to forget how lucky many of us are. For almost all of human history, getting water meant walking, sometimes for miles, to a river or a well every single day. The convenience of just turning a handle is a very recent luxury. And we have to remember, it's a luxury that not everyone in the world has yet. For millions of people, the daily struggle for safe, clean water is still very real.
And that's what makes this quote hit so hard. Because the solution doesn't always have to be some giant billion-dollar dam. Sometimes, something as simple as a single water tank and a shared tap can completely revolutionize a community. It can give kids back the hours they used to spend hauling water, which means they can actually go to school. It can improve a village's health practically overnight. It is, quite literally, life-changing. So, what can we do to protect this amazing system? Honestly, it all starts with small, simple actions. Every single one of these tips actually makes a difference. Think about this. A single leaky faucet, just one dripping tap, can waste over 10,000 liters of water in a year. That's insane. So taking a shorter shower, turning off the tap while you brush your teeth. Look, this isn't just some nice to-do list. These are vital acts of conservation that, when we all do them, ensure the whole system can keep on working for everyone.
In the end, the journey of water is our journey. It flows through our lives, our cities, our own bodies. Understanding its incredible path from a faraway river to our homes gives us more than just appreciation. It gives us responsibility. So the next time you turn on that tap, just pause for a second. Think about the unbelievable journey that drop of water took to get to you, and then ask yourself, what am I doing to protect it?